Please read this. Please help me. I don't know what to do. I don't know where else to go. I'm afraid to tell anyone about what is happening to me because I'm sure they'd just ship me off to a mental health facility for the criminally disturbed as soon as I open my mouth. If you had told me even a fraction of what was about to happen to me a month ago, I would have thought you were insane too. I still would, I think. I'm not entirely sure what is real. I'm currently sitting on a curb somewhere 2 towns over from where I live, waiting for my ex-roommate to pick me up. And then, I don't know. I don't know what happens then. I'm half sure she's going to pull up with the police in tow. And when they look at me, they'll immediately open fire. At the very least, they'll lock me up for a long time for what I've done. Until that happens, I'll write down everything I know and pray that someone, anyone, has some kind of answer for me. Whatever's happening to me, whatever the ants did to me, it hurts. Dude, I've told you, don't kill the ants, it'll just attract more. I examined my bright red palm, smeared with the tiny black bug, and throbbing from the force of smacking it against the counter. Hannah's scowling face met my gaze as I wiped it off on the back of my pants. I had never thought she liked me much, but over the past year I had come to accept that that was just the way she was. And through that realization we had developed a sort of symbiotic form of friendship. It was just like in nature, like a bee spreading the pollen of a flower in exchange for nectar. Hannah took the trash out every Saturday night, and in return, I did the weekly grocery shopping and lugged the bags up the 3 flights of stairs in our apartment building. Recently, though, I think her feelings towards me have become conflicting. First, I had my nasty breakup with Sean, and then there was the incident. I tried to pout. "Are you still mad at me?" She sipped her coffee, looking me up and down indecipherably. "I just wish you would tell me the truth." I remember groaning melodramatically, throwing myself against the kitchen counter. "I am telling you the truth, it wasn't my fault." It was fair that she didn't believe me. I probably wouldn't either. But seriously, no one was home when that ant colony toppled over and shattered. I hated those ants. I hated the stupid glass box that took up almost the entire bedside table, squirming with life in the form of wiggly 6-legged dots. It had been Sean's from one of his stupid environmental science classes. When he had brought it over, thoroughly drenched in sweat and beet red from the effort of carrying it up all those stairs, I had said that I thought they only did stuff like that in middle school. He had just shrugged. Then he had tried to tell me that all the ants actually had names, and I had laughed at the pure lunacy of expecting me to remember them all. I hated those ants and how they reminded me of him. I hated that they were the only part of him that was left in my room. I stayed up so many long nights after he moved out, just watching them tunnel. It almost became a source of peace at times, peering into their little bulb-shaped homes in the dirt like some sort of malevolent god, knowing I could smash their happy houses into pieces in an instant if I pleased. Then I started to scare myself with that train of thought, and I moved the glass colony into the living room. Both Hannah and I were gone for the day when it fell. I'm sure it wasn't very pleasant to get home to that, but still. I just don't see why it had to be in the living room. "Too painful," I said shortly, reaching over to the box of supermarket cupcakes in front of her and dragging my finger through the chocolate icing, bringing it to my mouth. She glared at me. "Aren't you supposed to be on a diet?" I shrugged. I was before I broke up with Sean. I was before my sugar cravings became unbearable and unavoidable. Whatever, I had stopped caring about what I looked like by then. It wasn't like anyone was desiring me. "Whatever," she sighed, setting down her coffee mug and tying her hair up in a ponytail. "I have to go buy more ant poison." I wish so dearly I could go back and tell myself something was deeply, terribly wrong. I stopped going to my classes a few days later. Instead of slowly getting better like all of my prior breakups, this one seemed to only grow in the strength with which it tore me apart. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want anyone to see me. It felt too wrong. That being said, being in the apartment wasn't much better. No matter how much ant poison we put around the house, the problem didn't seem to go away, and it was starting to make me feel itchy. It didn't help that it was spring, the beginning of prime ant season. We found those stupid bugs everywhere, in the pantry devouring our food, in the kitchen, the bathroom, underneath the counter. I even found a few in my bed, marching in a line across my crumb-riddled comforter. I have never been a particularly tidy person, but suddenly I felt like a professional maid, constantly rearranging and scrubbing to try and trick the swarm. I think I started obsessing over the ants initially just to stay off my phone. When that didn't work, I would sit in the shower letting the hot water burn off the itchiness. One night, neither of those things worked. I found myself drifting down the stairs in my slippers, climbing into my beat-up Chevy and speeding off into the night. I was barely awake even by the time I reached the grocery store. I purchased 2 boxes of muffins, a bag of those lollipops with gum in the center, and an entire sheet cake that read, "Congratulations" on the top in scrawling blue icing. I barely remember driving home nor coming back inside. It was like I drifted off into a strange dream, and when I came to again, I was knelt over next to my bed, my face and hands covered in frosting, and my eyes locked on where my bedroom floor met the wall. A line of ants marched along the crevice, blissfully unaware of my fixed gaze, some carrying crumbs of cake on their backs that were far bigger than their tiny bodies. The itchiness really started to amp up after that night, primarily on my face. I tried lotions, different soaps, everything. Nothing seemed to help. I chalked it up to paranoia. Sometimes I looked in the bathroom mirror and could swear I saw ants ducking in and out of my hairline. When Hannah left town to visit her parents, I went with her even though she never really said I could. "I'm leaving for a bit. Gonna go see my family," she had said. "I think this breakup is really getting to me," I had said. She had nodded, and that was that. When I fell asleep in the car on the drive, I realized how little I had been actually sleeping that week. I remember that trip actually really helping. Hannah's parents have a really nice place right on the lake, and I spent a week sitting by the water, feeling more grounded than I had in a long time. I was included in meals, and her parents used that opportunity to question me about my life. "How are classes? Are you still with that nice ginger boy?" But overall, I stayed out of their way. I just wanted to breathe the fresh air. I even caught up on some schoolwork. When we got back home, I had a fresh outlook on life. My hair was washed, the itchiness had subsided, and I hadn't even thought about texting Sean in a few days. When I climbed into my bed, pulling the cool sheets up over my head, I thought I would finally get a good night's rest in my own room. Then I woke up, screaming. I remember my vision being blurred. Even in the darkness of my room, I could tell it was blurred, and my face hurt, more than hurt. It felt like the bones in my face were twisting, contorting, being slowly pulled out of my skin. My teeth ached as if I had been curb stomped. I fell out of bed, taking the sheets with me, and sprinted to the bathroom, letting out strangled gasps of pain the entire way. I flipped on the bathroom light and struggled to examine myself in the mirror, my eyes filled with tears. Hannah banged on the door with her fists, tried the doorknob, then banged again. "Are you okay? What's going on?" "I'm fine," I gurgled, pulling my lips back from my teeth. Nothing looked wrong, but the pain was still there, like a mallet was slamming into my face over and over again. I felt like I might have a heart attack. Go back to bed. Let me in, Jesus Christ." When I finally opened the bathroom door, I nearly collapsed into my sleepy-eyed roommate. She scrambled to catch me, lowering me to the floor awkwardly. I barely remember that trip to the ER. I remember sobbing in the waiting room, Hannah looking very uncomfortable, and a nurse poking and prodding me. I remember questions, so many questions like, "What was the last thing you had to eat?" and "Are you on any medication?" I tried to answer all of them, but my teeth felt too big in my mouth to speak. I remember Hannah telling them I was going through a pretty rough breakup, like she was hinting that I was having a psychotic break. The doctors decided it was a migraine instead, and sent me home with a bottle of over-the-counter pain meds. When we got home, sometime in the range of 4 a.m., I went straight to my laptop. I had no idea what to search, so I stared dumbly at the glowing screen for what must have been 10 whole minutes. "Ants cause illness." Search. The answer was a resounding yes, they do. Sometimes. My screen stabbed me with words like Shigella, Clostridium, Salmonella, Staph, Strep, E. coli, fungi. I frowned and brought my cursor back to the search bar, tapping the delete button in a daze. Ants? Search. Stupid, I know, but I don't remember my thought process. I was moving as if I was in a dream. By the time the sun began to light up my bedroom, I knew way too much about ants. Ants evolved from wasps. Ants have a division of labor system. Ants can carry things 50 times their own weight. Ants have queens whose purposes are to lay eggs and drones whose purposes are to fertilize the queen's eggs. After they mate, the queen's wings fall off and the male dies. Ants operate as a unified entity. Ants have colonized almost every landform on the planet. I couldn't stop looking, reading. A pop-up on my screen finally snapped me out of it at almost 8 a.m. Bold and capitalized letters flashing in my face. Have an ant problem. How long had I been sitting there? How long had there been that scratching sound in the wall behind my bed? I stood up, my legs almost completely numb, causing me to crumple to the carpet. With my remaining strength, I crawled over to the bed on my hands and knees, using it to support myself and pressing my ear against the wall. There it was, almost silent, but there. I followed the sound down the wall, down, 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 until I was blocked by the bed frame. Without even pausing to think, I forced myself to my feet and lifted the bed frame and all, tossing it to the other side of the room. It slammed against the wall, cracking loudly. At the bottom of the wall where my bed had been, a swarm of ants crawled in and out of a tiny hole. There must have been at least 100 of them. The itchiness in my face returned with a vengeance, and I blindly shoved my finger into the hole, beginning to rip the wallpaper and drywall apart. Over and over again I grabbed and ripped, my fingernails searing with pain, dust and debris filling the air. When I was finally satisfied, nearly the entire front of the wall was torn away and I stumbled backwards, coughing into my arm. Behind my bedroom wall there were thousands of ants, maybe millions. My eyes couldn't focus enough to make it out. They crawled and scrabbled through makeshift paths that had been carved into the plaster, trails that wove into one another and curled down the length of the expanse. They seemed to buzz in my head, scratching tirelessly at the material. They were everywhere. Again, I don't remember much of what happened after that. I never told Hannah about what I found, I don't know why. I was trapped in my mind with the buzzing, the scratching. I know that I raided the pantry. I spread every dessert we had out on the kitchen floor and dug into them with my hands, stuffing my face with sugar. I couldn't get enough to feel satisfied. Seeing the colony swallowing my room had made me hungry. Hungry in a way that made me feel like I would never again be full. I know that sometime in those next few days, Hannah told me she was moving out. She had this look on her face, something like disgust, as she cracked open my bedroom door, pinching her nose like she couldn't stand my stench. I didn't smell anything. And that being said, I couldn't hear or see much either. Still can't. She told me I needed to get help. I knew I didn't need help. There was nothing wrong with me except for a few ants and my insatiable sweet tooth. I don't remember destroying the other walls of the apartment, tunneling into them with my bare and bleeding hands, or smearing rotten frosting over the windows, as if someone, something, would smell it and come. I remember flashing in and out of reality, being hit with realization and then slipping back under like a drug trip. I definitely don't remember getting into the car last night, or driving 2 towns over filthy and hurting, but I know that it must have happened. I do remember knocking on Sean's door and him opening it with a smile as if nothing was wrong and saying that he had been expecting me to show up. I do remember not really caring. I came to again on his bed, which was just a mattress on a bedroom floor. His room was riddled with boxes, most of them not even opened yet from the move. He was next to me, but he didn't move, even when I shook him and said his name. I rolled him over and stared into his frozen face. I didn't need to check his pulse. I knew he was dead. Now I'm sitting on the curb waiting. I've been wandering for what feels like hours. My phone will die soon, but it doesn't really matter. I don't really care if Hannah finds me at this point. Maybe I deserve to freeze to death. I wish I was still under that spell. I don't want to be conscious right now. I don't understand what is happening to me, and I really, really don't want to. I'm afraid the answer is far worse than not knowing. I know I killed him. Somehow I killed him, even if it wasn't on purpose. I can't get his smiling face out of my head. His, "I've been expecting you." He was happy to see me, even in my horrible deformed state. My back hurts and my face hurts. I'm scared to touch it or, God forbid, open up my camera out of fear of what I'll feel or see looking back at me. I won't touch or look at myself at all. Something feels wrong with my abdomen too, like it's being sucked into itself, like it's changing. I just want to go home. My stomach feels strange, like it's too full. Please help me.